Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Bright Side of AI, the podcast where we explore the ways artificial intelligence could actually make our lives better. I'm Ronan, and with me are my co-hosts.
I'm Sky.
And I'm Jake.
And today we're going to be talking about the deeper dive into the benefits of AI into modern society. So I think that we can really just kind of start off looking at,
Our first point.
Our first point here.
Yeah.
And so, on the side of safety and medical benefits, I think that, a place that we've kind of just been thinking about for, decades now is the world of self-driving cars.
That's true. This is a big part of AI hype. Self-driving cars. Waymo recently reported in May that it is way better than human drivers already.
Yeah, I mean, being from Los Angeles, I don't really know how well they're implemented, around the country, but in the LA metro area, they've become really popular, and it's really interesting to see, driving on the road and kind of seeing how they interact with everyday traffic. LA being a place where that can really fluctuate a lot, we'll have really bad rush hour and times of the day where the streets are completely empty. And just looking at how the Waymo will adapt depending on that and, really work its way through traffic, but also not do anything to endanger the people around it, I think is really interesting. And the technology that they've been developing is honestly, in my opinion, kind of the perfect happy medium between a car that's optimizing its route, but also not putting people in danger by maybe making excessive lane changes or speeding in places where it can kind of get away with it, because in Los Angeles, I'll be honest, that's kind of the general public's tradition almost, if you will. On the highways, people typically go 20 over, and while they're not really on the highway too much, you even when you see them around going on the bit of the faster roads, they typically like to just stick to the speed of traffic, and I think that has kind of been something where they almost go into society pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, some of their numbers are just crazy. They're reporting 96% fewer vehicle-to-vehicle crashes at intersections, which is that spot in traffic is the leading cause of injury. So 90% fewer, that's pretty impressive. 92% less pedestrian fatalities, 82% less cyclists, and 82% less motorcyclists as well. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with Tesla's numbers, but they could be even doing better than them at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they definitely make the roads safer, and it makes people want to go out and be able to bike on the road and feel safe to bike or feel safe to go walk on the road. It makes it better for everyone else.
Yeah, I think also another thing that kind of gets maybe overlooked a little bit, for better or for worse, but how this could kind of take over in the world of transportation where you're just a passenger, with Uber and then with taxis before that. I'm curious where this is going to take modern society, in the sense that, since these self-driving cars have been honestly deemed safer than a lot of drivers, I think, because it takes some of that nervousness and that reaction time out of the equation, and it just goes to the sheer capabilities of these supercomputers that are driving these cars. I think that it's really going to change the game of how people get around when they don't want to drive themselves.
Yeah.
And I still think that having the ability to drive yourself, personally, I love to drive, and I think that having that, individualistic freedom is awesome, but at the same time, for people, going on a night out or where they don't want to put themselves or others in risks, I think that these could really lower numbers of DUIs as well when used properly. I mean, people are still going to make the wrong decisions, but at the end of the day, I think that in that way they could be a really positive addition to society.
Yeah, and I mean, some people are even calling for, over time, a phasing out of human drivers because they're simply, not as good. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it takes a lot of the risk out of it for a lot of people. At the end of the day, there still will be collisions. That's just the nature of everything. Things mess up, but just looking at these numbers alone, I mean, they're basically the closest that we're going to get to 100% in each of the categories, that we're really limiting those negative effects and those incidents of people being harmed. And I think that just by taking that aspect of driving away, just this much already has shown such a positive effect, and I think going forward it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and like you said earlier about it'll definitely like decrease drunk driving by a lot, and that is like makes it extremely dangerous to be on the road. That's terrible. And like if you can just say, hey, take me home, and when you're drunk and not risk killing anyone, I think that it's just way better for public safety, just for everyone, really.
Absolutely.
I think it's gonna become a new norm as well. Like, people won't feel like, oh, I'm this way because I'm riding a self-driving car. There's gonna be no stigma behind it, and I think as it becomes more integrated in society, people are gonna feel more comfortable from stepping away from the wheel in times when they really shouldn't be behind it at all, and using that opportunity to, take a ride like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit, I think we can kind of talk about the more medical side of things. I know that AI has really worked its way into healthcare kind of in a sneaky way, but if we could just dive deeper on that, and just see what all it is in store for us in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, AI has been doing a lot of interesting things in the healthcare sector, but the most important thing it's been doing, if I could find it, is right here, Nanoxa AI. This is the most interesting startup to me. They are able to use AI to detect cancer and other illnesses way earlier than human doctors ever could. And that is able to save lives. It extends lives. And yeah, there's genuinely like almost no downside to it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, kind of as a society, we're going to have to learn to work in tandem with AI. I think that this could kind of be a daunting thing for a lot of people to look at and see, wow, we've had these conversations before, but how is this going to phase things out? But I think that we really need to look at that from the other perspective and think of, well, what is this going to do for the safety of the people of, the whole global population, not even looking regionally, but as this becomes more accessible for healthcare all over the world, like, I just think that, that trade-off is 1,000% worth it if it means that more lives can be saved earlier, especially with something that can be as terminal as cancer.
Yeah, and if doctors they're not able to, you're not even like taking away a job, you're just adding a new factor to keep people safe instead of like taking away like maybe a doctor's position or like reducing the number of doctors. We're actually just increasing the number of healthy people, which is like you said, the trade-off 100%.
Yeah.
and doctors and nurses are like chronically overworked, so this could help reduce some of their burden a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like, as the population continues to grow and as healthcare kind of becomes, it's an ever continuously evolving thing, and unfortunately I think what we've kind of seen is in the current situation that it is, like you were saying, with overworked, healthcare workers, that you just have less and less opportunity almost to, see doctors, and waiting times become longer. So, implementing AI and into all works of the medical industry, I think will really start to speed those, kind of periods of waiting up, and hopefully even, post-examination, like, for example, my personal experience that's going on right now is that I had my x-ray and they said that I have to wait like 3 days for radiology to get back to them.
Yeah.
And with me, it's like, say it was something a lot more dire. Obviously maybe there would be a little bit more urgency, but even still, people can only work at a certain pace. But if we're able to use like supercomputers and AI to analyze a lot of these things based on, previous breaks and things, in this whole like database, we're able to, get those results back faster and maybe make a more beneficial change for people in a more serious situation. But even for me, as just somebody that, kind of needs to know what the recourse is going to look like, it could be better to, just have to wait 1 day or even a few hours in a great situation, and then maybe be able to make some new appointments knowing now what I need to do. Obviously it's not a very serious situation, but even still, it can help just minimize those waiting times.
Yeah, right. AI is also, I guess, continuing like our theme of like health right now. some people have pointed out that AI is kind of counterintuitively able to kind of reduce screen dependence in certain cases. So this is a product. It's actually a failed product, but it represents a vision, part of the vision for AI, which is kind of what we're getting at. This is the Humane AI pin, and the idea of it is that it is your personal AI assistant. You can talk to it, but it doesn't have a screen on it, which means you can have sort of the benefits of technology or a smartphone. You can talk to your family, GPS, music, but you're kind of like reducing your dependence like on that screen. So in that way, AI is kind of helping to like reverse the fallout of like social aspects in society that technology has caused.
Do you think on a personal level that this is something that you would be really interested in?
This product, no, but I see the vision.
I think I would be interested, like just being able, like, because now if I get a notification, like I have so much crap in my pockets now, I have to like fish through everything and then make sure my one card doesn't fall out when I get my phone out.
Right.
And like just to look at that, I think like having like a pin on my body where I can just like look at it really quick to see if I care enough to actually do anything about it. It would be very, it feels very, just like good. Like feels like a good product.
Yeah.
To me.
Also, what I kind of like about this idea of almost like a heads-up display, if you will, like it keeps people a little more aware of their surroundings. You know, it's really easy to get yourself buried in your phone.
Yeah.
I think a lot easier than people want to admit. And also, additionally to this is if it's kind of something that just tells you, you know, general things about like notifications and whatnot. As well as like I know with the Humane AI pin, like it was also something where it can analyze your surroundings and kind of tell you more about stuff that you were obviously observing. But this kind of newer platform of this like heads up, you know, still in reality, like AI format, I think could actually be really helpful because when you go to pull your phone out to look at a notification, the opportunity to get distracted with something else is really easy.
It's huge.
And people already have become so addicted to, you know, the screen and kind of taking the communication off the screen almost by using something like this, for example, where it really limits what you're able to look at in that sense.
Yeah.
Now you're still able to do everyday things and it's still able to feed you so much information about the stuff around you, but it really helps you kind of live in the world that we live in and less on your phone.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been kind of looking into that on a personal level a little more. What I've been seeing is that the average person spends, you know, it's calculated that the average person will spend about 5 years of their life on their phone.
Pretty
And
sad.
only like, it was like the high 1.8 years eating of your whole life.
Yeah.
So we spend around triple of our lifetime on our phone than we do doing something that is required for a living. So if you were to think like, you know, even in the older years of your life, like people, what would they do to get 5 years more?
Yeah.
And, you know, or 5 years of the good years back. And I think that, you know, it's because it's become so normalized in our society to just, you know, be, you know, in this virtual place, which really has a lot of pros to it as well. But it's so easily accessible and that's almost like a drug because you know the instant gratification, that dopamine hit, it just allows people to dive in and just not even look back. And you know, if you get so wrapped up in that, there goes all that time. I mean, if we just look at screen time, you know, you spend a quarter of your day, maybe some people a third or even half of their day on some sort of screen or some sort of device, and you know, you spend another really large portion of that sleeping. So really how much is left to do everything else that you need and want to do in your life? And I think that, you know, people have honestly become a little too codependent on, you know, that screen and that kind of that way of lifestyle. And I think that it's become such a social norm that it's so overlooked, but really you just waste your life away.
Yeah. Do y'all want to talk about AI in the workplace?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need to move on.
Okay, so I know that one like big thing for AI in the workplace is like cold calls. And it's like you use AI not to like make the whole call or to make the sale, but to determine if the person is interested. And then once the person is interested, you can put them to a human, which then you have to like use soft skills of like actually selling them something.
Right.
But they just, it kind of sorts through like the monotonous part of like, okay, this person doesn't care, let me call someone else, and then this person doesn't care. But it makes it so much easier, and then it's not really taking away a job, it's more making the job more efficient, so you're not spending such long hours just doing whatever, and or just making calls no one cares about and then getting hung up, and maybe connecting with 3 people a day when you could connect with way more using the integration of AI into your workforce.
How would it do that in that specific situation?
Like,
Do you know?
yeah, so it would say, like, it would make a call, and then it would, like, maybe, like, describe the product or, like, ask you a couple questions, and if you are, like, seem disinterested or you seem to just not really care about it, then it would, like, maybe hang up, but it can detect, like, if you do seem interested, then it can, like, put you through with a real person.
Right,
It's
so it's kind of
interesting.
using those verbal cues almost.
That
Yeah.
there is like a bit of a legal barrier to that, which I wasn't aware of, but like robocalls related to selling people things are actually illegal in many states. So
But
that's-
is it a robocall? That's
that's
the
kind-
question.
I don't know, is AI a robot? What if it gets so good that it's not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another debate that we could kind of have here because there's still a human aspect of it to it. You know, that's just using those cues almost to
If you
determine the interest level.
If you didn't know it was AI, you would never, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
Or
And then
or if we get to like a point where there's like a merger of like AI and people, like how do you determine what's, like what's
what's really what? I
Yeah.
mean, it's already been so good with kind of
It kind
the
of brings
video
us
that they're
into
creating.
Ray Kurzweil. He believes that AI will merge with humans within the next
2045.
2045. Yeah.
That's what he thinks. How do y'all feel about that? Are y'all excited?
I think that it's kind of the great unknown. I mean, people have kind of these ideas of this horrific way that it could turn out, and people kind of see it as an opportunity for almost an oasis. And
Yeah.
I think that because it's such a gray area, I mean, it almost seems like every single time that we've tried to look into the future, we've been so wrong
Yeah.
about what is going to happen. They thought we'd have flying cars by the early 2000s. And
Go watch Back to the Future.
yeah, and I just think that we can only really see what's going to happen as we adapt with it. And, like everything that society has been through in the past with, invention and innovation and development, I think we just have to work with this very, very different phase of humanity because, everything's been a little more linear up until now. Stone Age, Bronze Age, everything's kind of a building block on top of itself. But when we've gotten to here in modern society, it's such a big leap.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of ways it could go. And, I think that this is, sure, a very valid perspective on it, but maybe it's even sooner, maybe it's later, maybe it's for good or for bad. But I think on a personal level that, it could be a very dangerous thing, but if we decide to make a, decision as a world to use it in the correct ways, I really think that it could be extraordinarily beneficial on ways that we don't even realize yet to society as a whole, to the way that people live. And, I just think that you can't really look at it on such a surface level. What do you think, Sky?
I mean, the way he described it is he thinks it'll be almost like having like ChatGPT or Gemini like in your brain. Like you can, like you think about something, you can ask some sort of like chip in your brain a question and you get the answer. I can definitely see the value of that, especially for maybe researchers, people in education, maybe a teacher. Like a teacher is asked a question by a student and then they don't know the answer, but like suddenly, you do know the answer. So it's kind of like, I do agree. I definitely see the utility of it. It is important for us as a society to kind of figure out like, what do we want this to be used for? Who should be allowed to have this? Should everyone? How young should they be?
Mm-hmm.
But I think as long as we make those right choices, it can definitely be like super helpful.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
that, like a lot of things in modern society and society even over time, like, there's dangers to everything. I think one thing that I took right there was the age part of it. Like, I think that we don't want to make people become too codependent on it too early in their lives, because that could kind of, I don't want to say that it would restrict people's actual cognitive ability, but it might make them too dependent and not actually teach them how to learn on their own and how to use it as a tool more than just like a crutch. So I think that, in the world of being a child and growing up and learning how to learn a more conventional way, I think it's still gonna be really important. It's definitely gonna change from what we have today and what we've had in the past, but if we go to that place where we have like a neural chip, I think that that's something that should not be looked into in the mind of a child.
No, but then there's also the additional question, right, of if as soon as we're adults we can now know the answer to everything, does learning as a child even really matter?
This is true. I mean, there's so many different perspectives and wormholes.
But I think overall though, it's like a good look to the future of our possibilities with AI and how it could, ultimately affect humanity for good.
Yeah. I think with great power comes great responsibility. I think it's something that we should really take into consideration here when we're looking at AI, because it gives us so much opportunity, so much potential for so much good. But at the same time, there's always this looming negatives, and just making sure that society and the people in power make the right decisions is going to be really important for whatever future brings.
Yeah. I mean, think about the application with research. Like, we have people in these programs, they spend 30 years of their life getting a doctorate to do research. We can get them up to the level of a doctorate in 2 minutes, and then they can spend the rest of their time doing research, and they can be they can accomplish much more in their lifetime, which can help deliver some of the economic benefits that people are talking about with AI.
Yeah.
So one thing I saw in particular, a CEO of a very big company was talking about how they now have an AI agent on their group of investors that decide what they want to invest in as a company. So
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
for looking at even for large companies that at the end of the day they're still using these tools to make really, really large financial decisions for the betterment, or sometimes even for worse. It just, it's still very much in the developmental phase, but I think that that's really interesting on how they're already incorporating that almost into what would have been traditionally a very human interaction. You have board meetings and whatnot, and that's super discussionary between people, and you make a decision, like a kind of a consensus decision.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious actually, to sit in on that and see what that AI would really, what it would bring to the table almost, and how it would affect that specific.
Well,
meeting.
also, I know, my parents were teachers, and a big part of being a teacher is sitting in just these a whole bunch of meetings, and in where they work, they just are in a bunch of meetings all the time. So it can be take up a lot of your time, and if you have an AI to concise or make everything concise and compact it down, it'll make it so you can be more efficient at your job, so you don't have to spend 5 hours of your day in meetings where you can get this information in 30 minutes from an AI. So I mean, I think it can help people be more efficient at their jobs, which I think that's definitely good for the future.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of negative talk about certain people that do menial labor that's easily replaceable by AI. They're really worried. They're they won't have a job anymore, which I would like to kind of refute that, because when you have AI and you use it to replace people with their job, society kind of has this big question. It's can we figure out how our society can work if there aren't enough jobs for everyone? And if you can figure out how a society can work that way, then people have all this additional time. They can be creative. They can spend more time with their families. They can do more things that are fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so AI kind of gives us this big question of when it does replace people, where do you go? And you have to turn that. I think that can be a very positive thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely two sides to every coin. I think with this opportunity that we've almost been given, there's a lot of positives to be taken from it.
Oh yeah.
And I really think that, I don't want the people to be, kind of to overlook that because of all of the negative connotation that could come from it, because at the end of the day, it's kind of a gray area still, and it's to be determined. So I think if we can really look at the positives and try and lean on those more, it can really become something great. And at the same time, like what you were talking about with jobs, like, at least in its current phase, it still can't critically think.
Yeah.
And that's something that
Yeah.
the human mind is still, it makes it unique, and it makes it important, and it makes it needed, because when something like a very AI-filled society fails, or if we have things, bugs and stuff that need to be fixed, and they require that critical thinking, if there aren't those human jobs around to do those positions, all I see is just that downfall. So I think that the job market will change very drastically. However,
You'll still need people.
you will always still need people to run a society of people.
Yeah.
And, I think that it can't become fully autonomous if we really do it correctly. It will still be like almost like Ray Kurzweil says, like a melting pot of all the good together, working in harmony.
Yeah. A lot of positive potential though for the future of humanity.
Yeah, I really think so. And kind of one last thing I wanted to talk about here was your guys' perspectives on what this might do to economies, like any economy scale, national, local, global economies. Like, what do we think AI is going to do to really affect that? Because there's this guy, his name is Darren Acemoglu, and he forecasts that that AI isn't actually going to be this multi-trillion-dollar boost to the global economy, but it's really going to only affect, like he thinks that it'll really only raise the U.S. GDP by around 1%, which is $700 billion. Sure, that's a lot, but he thinks that it's only going to be that over the next decade versus what some people and some other companies are calculating to be in the tens of trillions, even the hundreds of trillions of dollars. I know obviously that's a really big spectrum, but I'm curious what your guys' personal opinions are, or anything that you've read and found about that.
I think part of the problem with like that view, or maybe not problem, just like you have to look at it a little bit differently. He's talking about a decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
AI is increasing it's getting better very fast, but I don't think a decade is really long enough to see these like long range changes in the economy that we're going to see. I think the economy will start to be based a lot less on actual human productivity and manufacturing, which we're kind of already seeing with like the AI bubble or whatever. Like a lot of these companies are just being valued very highly because they use AI, which that can be used. Companies need AI, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think you have to consider that, and you have to consider that getting AI to this level that we're talking about will probably take longer than 10 years.
Yeah, and personally, like, I think we're in the stage right now where AI has been growing at like an exponential rate, and we are in the scope of like humanity, or however long AI will be around. We are very short, like right at the beginning, and we've only seen this like really big exponential growth. So we think it'll keep growing at this rate where it will like end up helping, or that's what they think, that it'll end up helping the economy by like trillions and trillions of dollars. But no, we don't know like if it tapers off or if it like hits a point where it just stops.
Yeah.
If there's a limit, but we just don't know that. And I think it's all about like, it just goes back to the hype or how you predict how well AI will do and how much more we can improve upon it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, it's honestly, in my personal opinion, I mean, we're not economists by any means, but I think in my personal opinion, it's really hard to predict what the future of AI is going to look like, especially in the world of economy, which is something that has changed and evolved so much over time, but really follows kind of those same pillars of how it's always functioned. But with something that is also so new to us as a species and as a society, it's hard to say whether it's going to grow like that or whether it's going to plateau in just a decade or two. And so I think that people really try and look too far into the future, into this place of uncertainty, and that can definitely cause a lot of the opinions that we've looked at and that we've heard. People kind of what the masses typically say, and I think just looking at what we know right now and kind of taking it at that face value, I think will be more beneficial for us as we grow with it than trying to maybe reach this very niche specific goal or have this one very small perspective or view of what we want it to look like.
Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil, for example, I don't know if this is too small of a belief, but trying to make us completely harmonious, that could just be one of many situations that come out of what the world of AI could bring. So I think that really just learning to grow with it is really going to be the best bet for us in the current stages, because we are very much in that baby phase of what it is as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think, is that a wrap, guys?
I think that's a wrap on today's episode. And
make sure to check in with us next week. Oh, actually, next week's the holiday break. We'll be back in 40 years. So,
take care.